Fyodor Dostoevsky's life reads like one of his own novels, full of suffering, guilt, redemption, and the constant tug-of-war between light and darkness in the human soul. Born in Moscow in 1821 to a strict military doctor and a devout mother, Dostoevsky's childhood was marked by an uneasy mix of discipline and piety. His father's sternness cast a long shadow over the household, while his mother's early death from tuberculosis when he was just 15 left a wound that would never quite heal. That tension between love and loss, faith and cruelty, became the soil in which his dark, probing stories would later grow. As a young man, Dostoevsky was drawn to literature as a way to make sense of the chaos of life. His first novel, Poor Folk, was published in 1846 and immediately brought him fame, earning the praise of the influential critic Vissarion Belinsky, who declared Dostoevsky a new voice for the downtrodden. But the bright beginning quickly dimmed. He became entangled with the Petrushevsky Circle, a group of intellectuals who discussed banned political ideas, and in 1849 the Tsarist police arrested him for revolutionary activity. He was sentenced to death by firing squad. On a freezing December morning, he stood in a public square, blindfolded, convinced he was about to die. At the last moment, as the soldiers raised their rifles, a messenger arrived with a reprieve from the Tsar. The execution had been staged as a cruel mock execution. Instead of death, Dostoevsky was sent to 4 years of brutal hard labor in a Siberian prison camp. That brush with death and the years in Siberia changed him forever. In prison, he was stripped of dignity and comfort, sharing cramped cells with murderers, thieves, and men who had long abandoned hope. Yet there he began to see humanity stripped to its essence. He observed how faith, guilt, and suffering shaped even the most hardened criminals, and he came to believe that true understanding of the human soul could only come through suffering. This belief became the beating heart of all his later works. When Dostoevsky returned from Siberia, he was no longer just a writer, he was a man who had looked directly into the abyss of human despair. He emerged with a deeper compassion for people's inner struggles and an unshakable belief in the possibility of redemption. But life continued to test him. He battled epilepsy, crushing debts, and the devastating deaths of his first wife and brother. To escape creditors, he often fled abroad, gambling away what little money he had left. It was in these years of personal turmoil that he produced his greatest novels, books that dug deep into the psychology of guilt, freedom, morality, and the nature of evil itself. His most famous works, Crime and Punishment, The Idiot, Demons, and the Brothers Karamazov, are not merely stories about individuals but explorations of the human condition. Crime and Punishment follows the young student Raskolnikov, who convinces himself that he can commit murder for a higher purpose. Yet, despite his intellectual reasoning, he cannot escape the torment of guilt. Dostoevsky uses Raskolnikov to show that even the most rational human mind cannot silence the conscience of the soul. The Brothers Karamazov examines faith, doubt, and the question of whether morality can exist without God. Through characters like Ivan, who questions divine justice in a world of suffering children, Dostoevsky captures the eternal struggle between reason and faith. What sets Dostoevsky apart from other great novelists is his relentless psychological depth. Long before Freud, he probed the subconscious, revealing how guilt can gnaw at a person's sanity, how suppressed desires can twist into self-destruction, and how the yearning for meaning can lead a person either to God or to despair. His characters are not simple heroes or villains, they are torn, contradictory beings who mirror our own hidden doubts and fears. Underlying all his work is a profound question: what does it mean to be truly free? Dostoevsky saw freedom as both a gift and a curse. In Notes from Underground, his unnamed narrator rebels against the idea that human beings will always choose rational self-interest. Instead, he insists that sometimes people will act against their own happiness simply to prove they have the power to choose. Dostoevsky believed that freedom without moral responsibility could lead to chaos, yet without freedom, there could be no dignity or authenticity. Suffering, for Dostoevsky, was not something merely to be endured, it was transformative. His own agony taught him that suffering could purify the soul and open the door to empathy and redemption. In The Idiot, Prince Mishkin, often considered Dostoevsky's vision of a truly Christ-like figure, suffers because of his innocence and compassion in a corrupt society. Yet that suffering makes him one of the few characters capable of genuine love and forgiveness. The darkness that Dostoevsky explored was not meant to leave readers in despair but to show that even in the deepest pain, there is a glimmer of hope. He often depicted characters falling into spiritual chaos only to find, through humility and love, a path back to grace. For Dostoevsky, the soul's journey was never about avoiding pain but about confronting it head-on and emerging with a greater understanding of oneself and others. His writing style also played a major role in conveying this psychological intensity. He often used inner monologues, fragmented thoughts, and feverish dialogues to mimic the chaos of the human mind. This raw, almost claustrophobic style draws the reader into the characters' mental struggles, making their conflicts feel immediate and personal. Many readers find themselves unsettled by Dostoevsky's novels because he forces them to confront uncomfortable truths about their own moral choices and hidden fears. Dostoevsky's influence extends far beyond literature. Philosophers such as Friedrich Nietzsche, Jean-Paul Sartre, and Albert Camus grappled with his ideas about freedom, morality, and the absurd. Psychologists have recognized his intuitive grasp of the unconscious, and theologians have debated his portrayals of faith and redemption. Even today, his questions about justice, suffering, and the search for meaning remain deeply relevant in a world still haunted by violence and existential doubt. The power of Dostoevsky's work lies in his refusal to offer easy answers. He shows us that the human soul is not a place of simple logic or predictable virtue, it is a battlefield of conflicting desires, fears, and beliefs. He asks us to see ourselves honestly, to acknowledge both the capacity for cruelty and the potential for profound compassion that coexist within us. Fyodor Dostoevsky's own life ended in 1881, but his words continue to resonate because they speak to something timeless in human nature. We all face moments of inner conflict, crises of faith, and the temptation to turn away from suffering rather than face it. Dostoevsky reminds us that it is precisely in these struggles that we discover who we truly are. To read Dostoevsky is to embark on a journey into the shadows, but also toward the light that flickers in those shadows. His novels invite us to explore the dark depths of the human soul, not to frighten us but to awaken us to the possibility of redemption, to the power of empathy, and to the enduring hope that even in despair, meaning can be found.